You're on the air.
Welcome to Ask The Supervisor. I'm Matt Lownes here at LTV, and I'm obviously joined by the East Hampton Town Supervisor, Peter Van Scoyoc. Today is March 28th, Monday. It's about 5:03 p.m. here. Peter, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Matt. Thanks.
Let's jump right into this. We obviously had one of our bigger events in Montauk here this weekend, the St. Patty's Day Parade. You were able to attend. You were over there reviewing the parades. Tell me a little bit about how that went. I wasn't able to attend. I was at the Amagansett Parade 2 weekends ago. But you tell me a little bit about how the Montauk Parade went.
Oh, well, it was a beautiful day. Relatively warm. I've been at some of the parades where felt like it was about 10 degrees, very cold, winter-like. But yesterday was spring light. It was well attended. A lot of families there. It was a great time. I got to march the parade route right behind the bagpipers, and then stood on the reviewing stand and watched all the floats and everybody come by. I think everybody had a wonderful time. And this is a harbinger of spring. It's something we look forward to, kind of kicks off the season, if you will. Many of the local businesses, particularly in Montauk, open up for the St. Patrick's Day Parade. That infusion of funds helps kick off their season, and it's kind of a rite of spring. So a lot of fun was had by all. And it was particularly poignant since it's been literally 3 years since we've had a parade. COVID hit just days before the scheduled parade in 2020. And so that was, the festivities were canceled. And then, with another surge in 2021, that parade was also canceled. So it's been 3 years since we've had a St. Patrick's Day parade. So it feels like things are starting to normalize.
Yeah, it's been great. Like I said, I was over at the Amagansett Parade 2 weeks ago. That was their first parade post-COVID, and it was great until I got absolutely poured on. It rained the last 5 minutes. It always rains at that parade, by the way. The world's shortest parade in Amagansett. So you guys definitely lucked out with the better weather. This weekend, luckily it wasn't today because we woke up to snow this morning. Nothing like a late snow in March.
Yeah, I think I may bear
Sorry.
some responsibility for that, Matt, because I decided on Saturday that I would till my vegetable garden and do some early planting of snow peas. So you plant snow peas and then it snows. I mean, what happened?
You know who's not going to have snow peas in August this year? No, I'm only kidding.
I won't be having any in August. I guarantee you I won't have any in August.
Oh man, no, I hope nothing but the best for your snow peas, Mr. Supervisor. I hope nothing but the best.
Thank you.
But if you get snow peas, you need things to. I'm trying to do a cool little tie-in here, and I am struggling.
Yeah, good segue. Well, yeah, you're not gonna have peas unless something pollinates those flowers.
Thank you. Yeah, there we go. Okay, you're on your A game today.
Great segue. So the next thing one of the things I wanted to talk about is the town's effort to make the public aware about pollinator species, birds, bees, the butterflies, you name it. There are a number of insects that are really supporting the web of life here, part of the ecosystem, and they're in the decline because of humans. The way we landscape our lawns is not conducive to supporting these insects, which are critical to our environment. So there's an effort underway to change the way we think about our landscapes and our lawns. And we encourage everyone to start looking into that and to plant species of flowering plants that will support pollinators. It's really nice to have those fragrant plants in your lawn, in your yard, attracting butterflies and other beneficial species. And it really helps support bird life and all the other forest species as well. So we're going to have a demonstrator project here at Town Hall. We're in the planning stages now to put in pollinator gardens at the entrance to the Town Hall building for a public awareness campaign to make people aware that you can do other things with your landscape besides just have a monocultured lawn. And it will enhance not only the beauty of your property, but also the biodiversity of our town, which is really critically important. So
Yeah,
that's one of the
follow-up
things.
question to that.
Sure.
Let's say I go to the town's garden that you're building at Town Hall, and I can go check that out. And I say, I really like this. I want to do this at my house. But I live in Amagansett, and there's people that live in Springs and different type of woods, or some people live on the beach, some people live in the town. Is there a resource for somewhere to figure out what works better in your backyard?
So there are, and that'll be part of our plan, is to make people aware of what species and different types of environments. Now, some people live in more wooded areas where there are a lot of shade trees, and certain plants, prefer shady or semi-shady environments. Some need full sunlight, and so obviously you want to plant things that will survive in your own landscape. I used to live in woodlands, very dense pine forests. However, unfortunately, due to the southern pine beetles, they've wiped out nearly the entire forest. And I live more in a meadow type area now. So I've put in bluebird boxes. We've had bluebirds nesting. So there are a lot of full sun types of pollinator species that I can now plant. I've had a lot of Rebeckia, which is like brown-eyed Susans, growing over portions around my pool and in the front terraces. And of course, you have to think about what plants are deer resistant as well. The native milkweed has a very fragrant flower, and as you know, it makes pods in the fall, which some people like to collect for decorative centerpieces. But they have these little seed pods that break open, and the milkweed drifts around. But they're absolutely crucial to the survival and proliferation of the monarch butterfly, which is an amazing species that spans the length of the continent, really from northern Canada, flies all the way to Mexico, winters over, and then they travel in the spring. And successive generations rely on that milkweed, which is poisonous to some species, and the caterpillars feed on it and therefore make them impervious to predators. But it's a really remarkable story, but that's just one little part of the web of life here. And, people can beautify their properties and help species as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I had no idea. I'll be completely honest. I know my parents are always trying to plant things that are deer resistant because we live in a very aggressively deer. They eat everything. I mean, it's true. So I will keep that in the back of my head and let my parents know about that milkweed. So it's very interesting. Let's move on to the next topic we have here. That the Admin Bureau. We're talking about expediting the process for adjudicating smaller, whether it be, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but minor parking violations and such. Is that true?
Yeah, code violations with the bail reform. There have been some other changes in legislation that require discovery and much more paperwork by law enforcement. Even for minor code changes, code violations. And we've found that it's really taken up a great deal of the time of our code enforcement agencies, Marine Patrol, Police Department, in paperwork to comply with the law. There's an exemption if you have an administrative law process. So we've discussed this as a town board. We've passed legislation that would enable East Hampton to have an administrative law judge to oversee those cases where somebody disputes a fine for a violation, a small violation. This will free up code enforcement, Marine Patrol, and police to be able to do more policing. So we think it will pay huge dividends in the long run. It will be more convenient for those who have to pay fines, and we'll have a due process available if they want to contest those fines by going before administrative law judge. So we're working hard on that. Yeah, go ahead.
If you could just explain what was the process previous to what to now you're trying to make it easier. What was so time consuming for the different code enforcers?
So we did have this process in place, but again, when the bail reform legislation was passed, it made it necessary to, within 24 hours, provide various information,
Mm,
any kind of evidence or whatnot. Great deal more paperwork involved. For instance, when there were some trespassing violations cited recently, it took over 12 hours to do all the paperwork on those cases. So you imagine
wow.
if you had to spend, 45 minutes or an hour for each violation you write, doing the paperwork and doing the reporting, that you're not going to have a lot of time on the beat. And so this is an opportunity for us to make that process much more efficient and still have a due process in place for those who wish to contest their fines. So
Yeah, that
we're
seems
working
really
hard on
fair.
that. We hope to have that in place for this season. We think that that will make a significant impact on the amount of hours on patrol. So that's something else that's in the works.
All right, cool. Now that we're talking about code, I'm going to bring up another thing that's been talked about recently. The town peddling code is likely to be amended. I will be honest with you, I didn't know what peddling meant until I started to look into this. My understanding is the town is trying to prevent people from having their own business in which you're putting up, whether it be chairs and umbrellas, bonfire pits, setting up different things at the beach, and without permits. And that's really what the town is trying to adjust the language in as far as the amending of the peddling code. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, we have public areas within the town. Currently, we do allow for peddlers like the soft ice cream truck or whatever that drives around to go to various locations. And there are restrictions on that. I don't think for that type of peddling, you can't be in one location. I think it's for more than 30 minutes at a time. And then we have certain concessions that we bid out, road end concessions at the ocean beaches, for instance, like the Ditch Witch out in Ditch
Hmm.
Plains, or various other businesses that provide refreshments for those beachgoers. And there's a process where they bid on those locations for the season. But what
Hmm.
we've noticed lately is that people are more and more trying to commercialize the actual beach, and there were some, I guess, vagaries in the code, and so we're tightening that up because we really don't want our beaches to become a sandy shopping mall, if you will. They're there for the public's enjoyment, not necessarily for commercial exploitation. We do administer permits for certain beach gatherings, events on a very limited basis, which are fully reviewed to see that they're not going to impede the public's enjoyment. But we're just tightening things up a bit.
Yeah, seems simple enough. Let's move on to the next topic. Um, the pilot program for restaurants to be allowed to have seating outside. Basically, I'm reading the more logistical aspect of it, but 3-year trial, restaurants, not including those in residential zoning districts, can set out a number of tables and chairs equivalent to the indoor capacity for every table that's being used outside, cannot be used inside. Residential restaurants in residential zoning districts can have up to 3/4 outside if there's adequate space available. Can you just explain the town board's decision? It seems like this is where the whole country's going, not just any particular city. If it's possible, they can have some outdoor seating, especially in the post-COVID world that we're living in.
Yeah, I mean, this was certainly something that became prevalent during COVID. Through emergency executive order, I suspended the zoning with regard to outdoor dining. And obviously, that keeps the public safer and the public enjoyed being able to be outside, and we currently had a provision where 30% of the indoor dining could be placed outside after a site plan review. So we've liberalized that, made it an easier, more efficient process, and would allow up to 100% of the occupancy of that business to be used outside. You can divide up the portion of the occupancy between the inside and the outside, 50-50, 20-80, however you want, but you can't exceed what the 100% occupancy at any time. And there is process to formalize that through a site plan review. If you want to make permanent changes, put in permanent patios and that sort of thing, there's a site plan process. But this is more of an administrative process that would allow restaurants to take advantage of this.
Yeah, no, it seems like, again, like I said, they're doing it everywhere now. It's not just in towns and in big cities. It seems like everywhere outdoor is becoming a lot more accessible. Let's talk about the affordable housing district okayed on Route 114, the Wainscott School District, and just outside of Sag Harbor, adopted as an affordable housing overlay district by the town board. Board members voted to amend the code to increase the allowable number of single-family residents per acre in affordable housing overlay districts from 2 to 4, and the code also allows up to 8 apartment units per acre. Can you tell me a little bit about the town's vision for what they may be able to accomplish here at the Wainscott Affordable Housing District?
Well, clearly, affordable housing is something that's really been at the forefront for a while now, since the pandemic particularly. The need for housing for any working person within the town has dramatically increased and become much less available. There's virtually no year-round rentals anymore, and the price of buying homes or renting is exorbitant. And most working people, whether you're a blue-collar worker or even a white-collar professional, housing is very limited, and that's having dramatic impacts. So we hope to, start addressing this. You mentioned the 114 affordable housing overlay that we've just approved. That would allow that property to build out at maximum density under the town code. And, we're looking at that for rental apartments. We also are looking at single family homes at our site at 395 Pandigo Road. That property, you mentioned the density change. Suffolk County allows up to 4 dwelling units, single family dwelling units per acre. Previously, the town limited theirs to 2. And we believe that in certain circumstances and locations that up to 4 is appropriate for affordable housing. And therefore the higher density is approved for those particular locations. Not a requirement, but it's something we could do. So we're trying to maximize that property in particular. We could have roughly 20 single family homes that will help alleviate some of the pressure on housing here.
Yeah, it sounds great. As you know, I've been doing a lot with affordable housing here at LTV. The one thing I've heard, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the one thing I've heard from a lot of people is the lack of affordable homes to be able to purchase. Mortgages are too high. Is the town at this point working on any home ownership programs moving forward?
Yes, that 395 Pantigo project would be for home ownership.
Okay.
The recently completed manor houses were for home ownership. Those are condominiums, but there's an ownership element there. And one of the greatest things about home ownership is that people become more vested and rooted in the community. And we think it's important to keep those folks that have lived here and worked here in town. It helps maintain the fabric of the community, helps support our local businesses. We're seeing the impacts in our schools and in our local government in terms of the ability to hire and retain staff. is really becoming a crucial element, and there's a real shortage of folks who can live and work here. So we need to address this problem. We will be convened a community housing fund plan committee, which will be meeting next week for the first time. This is to help put together a plan for the 0.5% transfer tax fund. This is a fund that, much like the Community Preservation Fund, will be modeled on that, whereby 0.5% of the transfer of a property paid by the buyer of the property goes into a fund which can be used for affordable housing to help people for down payments, first-time home buyers, to help subsidizing the cost of the land. The town would be able to retain a stake in those properties as well, to partner with our local folks to be able to build or buy homes. There's a whole array of ways that we could help with that funding. We think it's an incredibly important tool in addressing the crisis, and we'll be putting together this plan, and the language for the referendum will need to be submitted to the County Board of Elections by August 8th, and will be on the ballot for this November. So we're looking forward to that.
Oh, wow. Again, not to make this all about affordable housing, this show is Ask the Supervisor, but over here at LTV, I've started a show called All In Affordable Housing, and I was fortunate enough to interview Assemblyman Fred Thiel this past Friday. And to add some context to what you just said, if the 0.5 tax was enacted prior to the pandemic, which it did go up for vote, Governor Cuomo did not pass it. It's in the upwards to, I believe the number was $8 million would have gone to East Hampton just for affordable housing alone. And that was the low number. That was like the low number, which I find very interesting. And I would like to ask you as a follow-up question, because, and again, I'm not trying to throw anyone on the spot here, but Mr. Thiel did not think it would be able to make the referendum until 2023. As you just mentioned, you're trying to get it on the referendum for 2022. Is that true?
Yes, and I think while some of the 5 town supervisors may be, trying to figure out if they can get it done, by August 8th, I just think it's so critically important that we can't wait, we can't delay, and I just think, you said I don't want to put you on the spot about affordable housing. Well, that's one of the primary topics that I talk about anytime I'm out in public, because it's on everybody's mind. If you're a business owner, if you're someone who's hoping that your grown children could stay in town, the town they grew up in, they want to stay in, no matter who you are, you're impacted by this issue. So I think that there is support within the community to pass this referendum. And I think it's incumbent upon us to do everything we can to try to fast track this so that we can get it on the ballot for this November.
Quick question. I hate to interrupt. Is there actually anything that the regular citizen can do, any like letters that they can write to, like whether it's our state senator or so forth and so on, to help push for the referendum to happen this year as opposed to next?
So really, it's on a town by town basis, and as I said, the town's working hard to put this together. There's really no roadblock to getting it on the referendum for November, and it really will be up to local voters to support it. So we will be, developing and presenting a plan to the public ahead of the referendum, so they understand how we would spend the money. And that's going to be, I would expect by early June we'll have that plan completed and be disseminating it through the community, posting it on all of our social media platforms. And I'm sure it'll be picked up in the press and discussed with other groups. I know this is a major issue for school districts as well. I've had a number of conversations with school superintendents and board members. I've been hearing about this issue as long as I've been in office, 10 years, but at no time has it been such a critical issue that has really cut across all all areas of the town. So
Has
we
the
really need everything we can.
one thing that a lot of people talked about in this past election was the very obtuse and confusing ways some of the ballot measures were worded. Has the town put any thought into about that when in regards to the referendum wording coming up on the 2022 ballot?
Well, that's going to be a critical step, and that's the one that people will be seeing when they go into the ballot box. So that language obviously hasn't been developed yet because we haven't even developed the plan. But it will be important to make it as clear and concise as possible so that people understand it and they feel comfortable about what they're voting for. And so that's public awareness. That'll be a major component in public awareness and outreach.
Well, thank you very much for explaining that in great detail. I'm obviously very passionate about this, so I appreciate learning out some new information that I can bring along to my usage as well. We are running out of time here, so if there's any last thoughts that you would like to spread out for until we see each other again in 2 weeks.
Well, Matt, as always, I hope everybody stays safe and well. I do want to announce that as the COVID numbers have continued to dramatically decline, that our providers for the COVID testing at the town site on 110 Stephen Hand's Path will be closing up shop due to the very low number of people still seeking testing at this point. It's no longer viable to keep that. I hope that is going to be the case from here forward. We will continue to monitor the situation and take whatever steps are necessary to continue to keep the public safe and healthy. But I just want to make people aware of the fact that that service is going to be discontinued, thankfully.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a good thing. If
That's
no one's
good
using
news
it, that
overall,
means,
I think.
yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not an epidemiologist, but I do know that that is good news. This was Ask the Supervisor for Peter Van Scoyoc and Jason Nauer in the control room. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jason. Stay safe and be well, everyone.